For Chlöe Swarbrick.
To the Minister of Housing, does he expect the recent changes to support for rough sleepers to end homelessness in Auckland? If not, why not?
The Honourable Chris Bishop.
Mr Speaker, my expectation is the recent changes will make a difference for rough sleepers in Auckland.
Will he commit to all 809 known rough sleeping Aucklanders being provided with emergency housing or social housing this year, and if not, why not?
Mr Speaker, that number's dynamic, obviously, as people move in and out of the system. There is support available for all 809 of those rough sleepers. The government spends around $500 million per year on support for many of those people. For example, MSD stands ready and willing to support them with social housing, with emergency housing grants, with transitional housing, with bond payments, with ready-to-rent programs, with Housing First, with sustaining tenancies. There are a plethora of programs that MSD, depending on people's individual circumstances, are ready and willing to provide, and we stand by those programs.
Are Auckland City Mission wrong when they said that, quote, "We are deeply disappointed with today's announcement, leaving these tightened eligibility criteria unchanged. Until the policy settings are changed, the number of people sleeping rough will continue to rise," end quote. If not, why not?
Well, I have great respect for City Missioner Robinson. The government has said that we expect MSD staff to exercise greater discretion when it comes to emergency housing, but we are not going to go back to the bad old days of a free-for-all on emergency housing, which resulted in thousands of children living for month after month in emergency housing motels up and down the country. That was a failed policy. The government spent $1.4 billion in 5 years on that policy, and homelessness during that time increased. That is not the solution for rough sleeping and homelessness. Simply opening up the gateway to emergency housing does not help society, it doesn't help those tamariki, and it does not help those families, and it certainly doesn't help New Zealand.
But I just make the point that when a minister is answering a question, he's not necessarily helped by people from his own government barracking throughout that answer. Chlöe Swarbrick.
Does he at all see the causal connection between 50% of applications for emergency housing in Auckland being declined under the government's policy changes and rough sleeping increasing by 90%?
Mr Speaker, the official advice is that it's not possible to distinguish or associate policy changes for emergency housing and an increase in rough sleeping. That's the official advice. However, it is clear that we have a rough sleeping issue in Auckland and indeed in other parts of the country. And I agree with the member, and in fact I'm sure all members would agree with this proposition, that no one wants to live in a country where that is something that happens. That's why the government has invested 300 additional social homes, brought home almost immediately through the Housing First program, which is evidence-based, which has been running for a number of years and I think is supported by many members around the House. 300 immediate new social houses brought on stream from the private rental market, additional support for those like the City Mission and others who are working at the front line of this problem. But if it was a money issue and if it was an intention issue, the last government would have solved this, because they spent during that time billions and billions of dollars, and the number of New Zealanders living in severe housing deprivation went up by 37%. The actual answer is to work with frontline providers that have the skills and capability, and ultimately fixing our broken planning system and infrastructure funding and financing system to make it easier to build houses more generally.
Was it a mistake to cancel 3,500 new homes across 200 public housing projects now that he has to lease 300 temporary social homes from the private sector?
Well, the good news about those 300 homes from the private sector is they can be brought online in the next few weeks and months. if we were waiting for the alleged houses that were cancelled to be built, that we might be waiting until mid-next year. And I think the member is right in saying we want immediate relief right now. That's why we've done it. In relation to the cancelled project the members refers to, it is difficult to cancel a project for which no funding was attached. The last government talked big about funding for social housing, never funded those projects. Many were in the wrong place, servicing the wrong people, and were uneconomic to build. That's why those projects have been pushed out. But in the meantime, we are now building 1,500 additional homes delivered by community housing providers, much more calibrated to where the need is, and in particular, focused on the right typology. As I pointed out in the House yesterday, 50% of people on the register need a one-bedroom unit, but that's not what we were building.
Yep.
The good news is we've changed the funding system, and now 89% of these new units are one- and two-bedroom units, which is what the system needs.
Just wait.
I'm actually answering the question.
How quickly could the government end homelessness if they spent the $2.9 billion on immediate housing support instead of tax cuts for landlords and property speculators?
Mr. Speaker, I remember another person standing in this House in 2017 and saying, "We will end homelessness by Christmas." Billions and billions and billions of dollars later, where are we? So it's all very well to talk big. It's all very well to rely on intentions and good thinking. It's all very well to have the right intention. Solving this problem is not as simple as standing up and saying, "I want to do something, I wish it was the case, and all I need to do is throw money at it." It is not that simple. And actually, members who understand this problem know that. The solutions are to make sure we get calibrated support for those who need it, work with frontline providers, build more social houses in the right places, and ultimately fix our broken housing system. Good intentions are not enough. You have to have a plan.